It's always good to have that option. I think, so we're 1 year today. This is actually we're like 1 week short of 1 year. Our first meeting was last September, so September 25th, I think, was our very first inaugural meeting. And I know you two were there.
Yeah.
Was anybody else there? I know a couple of BSI people were there. Yeah. So we've been doing this for a year. It's been a pretty good journey. Met a lot of interesting people doing interesting things, which is great. It's always good to get out and talk to other people and share ideas about what's going on. It's been kind of interesting watching it over the last year from the Microsoft side too, since they picked it up. It's interesting seeing what they're doing and not doing with the platform. So yeah, lots going on there, lots of movement. Flutter in the last year has really taken off. We got a little tidbit on that. Lewis is going to present some Flutter stuff tonight, so anybody who's kind of been looking at Flutter and been interested in it, Lewis will show you what it's all about. It's a very interesting platform. Anybody been working on anything interesting lately or notable that they want to share? I was really hoping to get more involvement from the lightning talks. I know it's really hard through summer to prepare a presentation, but we can do something like this at any point. So if you've ever got something that you just want to show off, something cool that you did, let me know. And it's like a no pressure thing. You don't have to build a big elaborate demo. You don't have to build slides or anything. If you just want to come up here and go like, look at the thing I did, and plug in your phone and kind of show the thing you did, that's cool. Even if you're just new and you're like building your first app, we're always happy to see what people are doing and how they're using the tools. So yeah, it's always cool. All right. So I think we're a little bit early. Still 6 minutes. You guys ready to get started? Sure, why not? So yeah, 1 year. Lightning talks, which means like we're just gonna have a bunch of quick topics, if I can get the slide to change. Or not. Anybody know how to use a Mac? Anybody knows Anybody here know PowerPoint? I set this up for like a kiosk mode. Yeah, but I don't want it to, like it does the split screen. Yeah, it's going to do something I don't like. Andrew, did you lose your feed?
Yeah,
Is it back?
it's back.
Okay, well, let's try it like this. Hopefully this is okay. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So we've got, like I said, we're doing the stream. So we've got something called an Elgato, which is supposed to be meant for game capture. So we run HDMI from the PC, or from the Mac, into this little box in front of me here. And it runs out from the box into the projector. And the box is plugged into the laptop in front of Andrew here, which is streaming the feed out via YouTube. So that box has some interesting things with the way it works or doesn't work so well with Mac. So hopefully we don't have too many technical difficulties tonight, particularly since Lewis is going to come up here and use my computer, and hopefully it doesn't give him headaches. All right, so I need to update this slide. So the location and the time is going to stay very stable, I think, at this point. This is about the third location we had. So started out at Bright Lane, we moved to Microsoft's office for I think 2 presentations, and then we've been at HackerU since. HackerU has been very good. I like presenting here, the room's great, and the equipment's great, and they're very friendly. And so we'll continue to meet here. third Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. We'll just keep that the same. So it's actually, I'm glad I didn't correct the slide. So we're at 485. No, we are at 485. So we're at 485. Next month we're going to be next door. We're hoping to have a bigger crowd because this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about WebAssembly with the Microsoft stack. So we've got the CEO of Inventive out of Montreal, Francois Tanguay. He's coming in to present how to build WebAssembly apps using .NET. If you haven't heard of WebAssembly, you should come because it's going to be the big thing that really breaks down those barriers between mobile and web and kind of finally unifies everything into one true platform for all devices. So that's going to be very, very valuable. Tell your friends. Uno is a very interesting product to begin with. So this is like their foray into WebAssembly, and pushing that avenue is going to be very interesting. As always, I'm looking for speakers. If anybody knows anybody who would like to present in November, please let me know. Or if you've got some small tidbits or anything, let me know and we can work you into the presentation. Of course, all kinds of topics are welcome. Anything, this one's a big one. I've been reading a lot about people talking about experience, and like it's really good to hear it's good for both the presenter and the audience, right? To hear somebody's experience working with the tool. For presenter, it makes it easy to present because all you have to do is talk about what you did. You don't have to be the expert in an area, you just have to go like, here's what I did, and here's what the challenges were, and here's what came out at the other side. And here's maybe what I do better next time, like all that kind of stuff. So good stuff all around. Of course, you can connect with us. More on this later. Twitter, Meetup, I think is pretty much how everybody found us. GitHub, our YouTube feed, and our WhatsApp channel. Yeah, it's always great to hear from people, so if you want to connect. Thank you to our sponsor, Bsi Labs. So Bsi Labs is a full-service enterprise mobile development company. We specialize in technical consulting, mobile strategy, basically everything to do with mobile. And you can find us on Twitter at Bsi Labs and on the web at bsilabs.ca. They provided the venue, the food, me, Daniel. So it wouldn't happen without them, so thank you to Bsi Labs. Also, a nice little shout out here. I think this is correct. This is out-of-date information, so I missed updating the slide. So pay no attention to the topic, but the Toronto.NET Meetup does some interesting stuff. They usually meet the next week, so they're meeting next Tuesday. Can you recall what their topic is this week?
Yeah,
Anyways.
just coming back on.
They're coming back from break too. I saw they just sent a communication note out. They have good topics and good presenters, and you can find them on Meetup too. I guess before we move on to that, I had one more thing. Oh, right. We are now part of the .NET Foundation. I neglected to put a slide in. You can tell it's summertime because I've really phoned this in on the deck. The .NET Foundation, we're part of that. .NET Foundation is just basically facilitating and building community around .NET, and they help us out with, I think they cover our Meetup subscription, so that helps with all the Meetup tools. So yeah, happy to be part of that, and that's another channel in which people can find us, so that's cool. So yeah, lightning talks. So first topic, this is for me and Daniel. So through the summer, since we weren't meeting and we were wanting to talk about new things and still look at new things, we decided to build an app for the user group. So that slide that has all the social stuff on it, we're like, yeah, it'd be good for people to do that, and we're starting to get some opportunities to give away some swag. So we want to be able to have an app that like hasn't mechanism in it where you can participate to win some contest items. And of course, just like our next meetups and stuff like that. So just something fun, something with a bit of a purpose, and something to try the new tools out with. So we wanted to build it with the latest and greatest of everything. So we went with Xamarin Forms 3.2. We're using Prism, what is it, 7.2.1?
It's the pre-release. No, it's the nightly build.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact version.
It's 7 point something.
Yeah, I think it's 7.1.2 or 7.2 or something. So those tools, plus we use Monkey Cache, which is James Montemagno's caching library. It's like a really straightforward. I've demoed that like a few months back when we were talking about offline sync. So we basically put that all into one package and built a nice little app. So I'm going to show that now. All right. As soon as I change the windows around or change the monitor configuration, it makes my mouse do some funny things. So here it is. It's a little small. So of course it's cross-platform because we built it with Xamarin Forms. We used, like I said, all the new tooling. So the nice thing about the new tooling, and I'll show the code, is if you haven't heard, you can use CSS in Xamarin Forms now, in Xamarin Forms 3.0 and newer. It really changes, I think I don't know if I talked about this last session, but it changes the way you think about style in Xamarin, like Xamarin Forms and in mobile in general. I know the way I've traditionally built apps, it's been a lot of, trying to get my view model set up and trying to get this piece working and look at, you're focused kind of on the details and moving data around a lot instead of what your app's going to look like. And for me, I'm not a designer, so when I'm building things, I don't really think about design up front. I'm trying to get better at that. I'm always trying to get better at providing a better user experience. And I think this kind of forces it to the forefront. Having better tools to actually work with the design really helps make you, it changes the way you think about it. So that was really, really helpful to have CSS as an available tool to do the styling on this. We stuck with the same kind of look and feel as the slide deck, which is lots of pink. So we've got 3 major screens, or really only 3 screens in here for now. We've got meetings, which is just taking from an RSS feed. This is cached behind the scenes using Monkey Cache. So it goes out and retrieves the RSS feed. And if you're offline, you can still bring up the feed just for fun. I know there's not a lot of utility there, but it's nice to have that ability in there and nice to play with those tools. Connect, so this is kind of fun too. We used the font icons from Font Awesome. They have a brand's font pack. And thanks to Peter in the back. Hi, Peter. Peter put the screen together for us. So Daniel and I worked on it, and Peter made a nice contribution to it to get this moving, which is great. This is using the Flex layout. So I don't know if you heard about the Flex layout in Xamarin Forms 2.1. Dave Artno had demoed it in a lot of his build stuff. It's a pretty powerful tool and makes it easy to do like kind of grid style layout without having a really cumbersome grid. So that was really nice to put together. And the fonts are really, really great to work with. Rather than having individual icon files at multiple sizes, having something that's a vector scalable piece is great. And then just a simple about screen. So nothing too crazy. Of course, these are all clickable, so if I click into GitHub, it's going to take me over to GitHub, which is great. And the meetings, you click a new meeting. If you have the Meetup app installed, it takes you to Meetup app, otherwise it takes you to the website. And the back functionality doesn't work exactly how I want it to, but that's not my problem. And yeah, of course, it's cross-platform. We use the, in Android, we use the bottom navigation or the bottom tabs, which is also a new feature as part of Xamarin Forms 3. This was kind of interesting because if anybody else is using, who else is using Font Awesome in their app? Anybody? Yeah. Cool. Fonts are really great to use, a way to use icons because it's so much lighter weight and so much less cumbersome. So you really want to use font icons if you have the opportunity. It's just so much better. It's a better developer experience and it's a lighter application package, so it's like a win-win. But these icons along the bottom, that's not built into the platform. Like you can do that with images, but out of the box, it's not going to show you a font icon just down at the bottom of the screen there. So you have to. There's a library out there called Iconize, which gives you like a tab bar, and it works fine in iOS. So Iconize will do this out of the box. It would put the tabs along the bottom with the icons. But in Android, because it's a little bit different, it's a new thing to have the tabs along the bottom, had to build a renderer for that. So that was some fun. I think I spent one night until midnight working on that. I had that marked on our backlog as like an easy task. And I was trying to coerce some junior people into working on it. And then when I tackled it, I went, oh, I'm actually glad nobody else tried to work on this because this was not exactly a lot of fun. I'm going to dive into a little code. Daniel, you want to say anything about it right off the top?
I guess we first came up with the idea to build the app because
Daniel came up with the idea. He says
so
we.
We wanted to try to put all of our social media and stuff together so we could just share with everyone and everyone could have easy access to it. So we're thinking of maybe building a landing page or something. But then we're like, oh, we're a mobile Meetup. We should try to build an app. So yeah, we just made the app. Yeah. And the code is open on GitHub as well. So
yeah.
If you guys want to check it out.
Yeah, the code's all on our GitHub.
We also have, the app is not in the stores right now. We still have an open bug reported by Luis. The title is cutting off in small screens. So if you guys want to download the app, we have it distributed on App Center. If you guys want the link to download the app, you can just ping us as well.
So the code's all on our GitHub. You can grab it from there. And yeah, if you would like to try out the app, like I said, not in the App Store now, probably next month. We wanted to fix that one bug first.
If any of you want to try to pick that bug up.
Yeah, if anybody wants to pick the bug up too, it's on our board. It's an open issue. We've got a few on there. Oops, I did not want to do that. So yeah, there's title screen is cropped on small Android screen. So if anybody wants to look at that, please feel free to pick it up, grab the code, go crazy, and PR it. And we'd love to see somebody else get involved or another perspective on this too. Anybody who, of course, any other developers you work with, anytime you work with a new developer or a new code base, you're going to see something that you haven't seen before. So I'd love to see some other people get involved. That'd be great.
If people have suggestions on features to add, would you do that?
Absolutely, yeah. Suggestions on features would be much appreciated too. And I guess we should do something about. I'll send out the App Center invite on through Meetup. The one challenge is if you have an iOS device, there's a little bit of churn that we have to go through to get your iOS device added to the provisioning profile so it can actually run on your device. So if you have iOS, just need a little bit of patience and persistence. But yeah, this has been fun to build. So I'm gonna just take a look at a couple of pieces of code here. So first, it's built with Prism, so it's pure Mvvm. So we've got view models here that represent our various pages. We've got a few models here. These are pretty straightforward. I had a suggestion a while ago from a colleague to try and use, try and put a lot of my logic into the commands, take it out of the view models and put it into the commands. Or instead of having services, like actually have commands contain the view logic, the business logic. So our commands actually, we have a base command and we have, this is very small. We have some base commands, and the commands here actually take from the base command, and all of our logic is kind of in here, which is a different way of looking at things. I did this again because having an app like this is a great place to experiment with something like this. See how it works, see how it maintains in the long run. It's a little bit different way of organizing code, a little different way of thinking about things, and it worked out pretty well. It was kind of cumbersome to get started and get it working to begin with, but in general, so this is just doing some very basic stuff. So we're loading events from the RSS feed. We're
Parsing the XML.
yeah, parsing and caching and putting it into a list, and that list is exposed to, or an observable collection, which is exposed to our view model. So pretty straightforward, but a different way of thinking about things. So that was an item of interest. Of course, the styles are very interesting. So we have a core CSS, which has most of our styles in it. So the coloring and the fonts and things like that. So it's pretty basic because there's not a lot of different styles in our page, and of course our pages we've only got 3 of them and they're relatively straightforward. So this was nice to work with. Even like in this limited scope of just 3 screens, working with that CSS is so much better than writing your styles in like either inline or in XAML. It makes way more sense. It's a domain specific language for styling, so I'm really glad to see this as part of forums. There was like a part of the community that was not really for it, which I don't really get, but whatever, to each their own. Another thing that we used heavily in this is content template, the control templates. So if you're coming from an ASP.NET background and you're familiar with something like old school master pages and ASP.NET forums, that's kind of how this works. Really, everything in here is like a wrapper. And then this content presenter here on line 22, that's a weird tooltip. This content presenter here on line 22 is actually where the content comes in. So when I create a page, I use the content with header, content presenter, or control template, and then tell it, here's what I want to include in that. And it wraps it in this stuff, so I don't have to repeat that on various pages. I'd done this before, but it was mostly done using things that other people had created. And this time I wanted to create it from scratch and really get super familiar with it. So this, again, really good place to do it. So you can tell here I'm using a content with header template, and then this is just only what we see on the page. So a header, what we're all about, the logo, and some couple of commands on those, on the images and text on that about screen. So that's this one here. So about us, kind of what we're about, and the image and tagline there. So yeah, this was pretty cool to set up too. I really like the control template. It's something I will be using very heavily from this point forward, because it does give you that kind of, it's a template, right? So it's great.
Reusability, right?
Yeah, lots of reusable code, so you're not repeating that XAML all over the place. What else was interesting in here? I kind of mentioned we're using, oh yes, I guess I will touch on the, So here, this is how you declare that you're going to do a bottom tabs in Android. So it's just that simple. It's one line. So if you have a tab page and you want to have it on the bottom, you just tell it, hey, in Android, put my toolbar on the bottom, and it just puts the tabs on the bottom. It's that easy with Forms 3.0. So that was great and really easy to do. So when we didn't have any icons in, to move the tabs from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen took one line of code, and I went, oh great, that's easy, I'm done. And then I started working with the icons, and like I said, that had me up until midnight. So as you can see, there's an icon bottom tab page here. This is just basically so the renderer can get its hooks in it. So we can tell the renderer, this is how I want to render the icon bottom tab page. The icon tab page comes from Iconify. So Iconify is that third-party library. It's an open source library that allows you to easily work with the font icons in your app. So down in my renders, I've got a very simple render here that I'm not going to get into detail on, but it basically makes sure that we can have those icons as part of the bottom bar. I'm not going to get into detail because I don't remember what I did. I did it back in like June, I think. Anything else you want to add to this? So yeah, this is there's some interesting stuff in here. I urge you all to take a look. If you want to grab it and reuse it for your own stuff, go for it. Because I think there's some interesting pieces in here that makes it pretty reusable and easy to comprehend and easy to dive into. And of course, if you want to contribute features, like if you have feature suggestions or you'd like to actually build a feature, or if you'd like to fix a bug or whatever, please do. Be most welcome to. All right, I think that's topic number one. I don't know if anybody noticed here, but I'm using JetBrains Rider, and I'll touch on that a little later.
Really good too. Another option besides Visual Studio for Mac.
It's probably going to cause the feed to hook up again. I don't know how to get it not to do this though. All right. Man Lewis. He's going to talk about Flutter. Welcome, Lewis. You want to talk about yourself? Intro, and while I'm getting you set up. Oh, you got your deck. Let me just get that up for you.
You have the Flutter here also?
No, not in Rider.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I've got it in Android Studio, if you want to use Android Studio.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah? Here's your deck. Oh. Today is a change, so if anybody wants, as a change, and because it's our 1 year. Happy birthday.
So I don't know what I did.
Oh, you broke it already?
Yes.
That was quick.
Oh, I see. No, I don't know. What happened?
I knew this was going to be interesting, dealing with this stuff out of things. But I had no idea this was coming.
It wasn't me, was that right?
Yeah, it wasn't this one. Just give it a second. Hey!
Perfect. So let me click here again.
Give it a second.
Yes, it's there.
Yes.
Perfect.
Good.
So I'm gonna give you an introduction to Flutter and just 5 reasons why you should care. Because it's a brand new framework for mobile cross-platform. development that it's supported by Google, and it's really cool. So first, who am I? I'm Luis Pulido. I have 11 years experience developing. Currently, I work at P4D as a solutions developer. I'm a game and mixed reality developer with Unity 3D there, also mobile development. I'm a certified developer with Xamarin. I have 5 years of experience with just mobile. And this is my Twitter if you want to follow me. So Flutter, 5 reasons why you should care. What is it? So it's a new framework from Google for crafting high quality native apps for iOS, Android, and more. Why more? Because so far the only support they have like officially is Android and iOS, but also is the official framework for Fuchsia, which is the new OS for the new devices they plan to release. But also there's people that have, because it's open source and it's free, people just take the engine from Flutter and port it to things like Xamarin, for example. There's people working on a Xamarin port for Flutter. But also WebOS, Android TV, Apple TV, even web, okay? So right now, any platform is basically possible to build with Flutter. It just needs time and people that work on that, okay? Oh, sorry. Okay, so you can build beautiful and animated interfaces with high performance in record time. This is very important because people that is used to work with things like forms. You have to make a change, build, release, see how it works, see how it looks. If you need to just one change, you have to stop, change, and go again. Sometimes even the Visual Studio doesn't even let you change stuff until you stop the running of the app. So in Flutter, you don't have that roadblock there. You can always have your app running, change code, save, and in less than a second, you have it showing what you just wrote. Okay? Like I said, it's free and open source. You can go there, check it out, and it's the official framework. So this is their motto. Okay, Flutter makes it easy and fast to build beautiful mobile apps. That's what they are selling with this framework. So what is the framework architecture? It's basically divided into 3 things. These 2 are one, which is widgets, but I divided into 2 to showcase a difference in this. So the first one is the Flutter engine. It's written in C++, which compiles natively on any platform that you port it, right? There is a low-level rendering support for using Skia, so the rendering engine is using Skia. It's using directly the GPU to render your UI. So one quick stop here, there are no native UI stuff here. It's a native app because it's running directly on the CPU with no virtual machines, and it's directly in machine code, so that's native, okay? But it's not using the native components for the UI. Like for example, forms, it's compiled also kind of natively using the mono libraries, but in the end it's using the native components for UI, okay? There is a difference there. And it can interface with platform-specific SDK. So this C++ engine can give you like a binding between any platform-specific SDK that you want to use to your Flutter framework, which is the foundation library. Okay, it's written in Dart. I love it. Dart is a language that is used for Flutter. It exposes this API to communicate with the engine. Basically, the rendering API and also the interface to communicate with plugins, packages, anything you need from platform specific. Widgets. Everything is a widget in Flutter. Everything. Literally, everything is a widget. From UI stuff to non-UI stuff, okay? That handles any state on your app, okay? Widgets are immutable. That means that they don't change, okay? So if you render a text, that's a text. But if you need it to change, then you need to make a stateful widget, which changes state when you want it to change, okay? So for that, it will recreate the widget, and it will recreate and re-render the widget. So it's not like the widget changes, and it's a new. Let's say you have a text and you added hello world. Now you want to do hello world 2. That the first one is it's done. It's not there anymore. You get a new one that says now hello world 2. That's how it works. And widgets are simple. You have from boxes up to bottom tab navigation, for example. You have buttons with shadow. You have anything you want, right? So any widget in Flutter is built from other little widgets. So you have a composition of widgets that makes your actual widget that you're using, okay? And you have also the design-specific widgets. You have Martino design for Android and Cupertino for iOS. Okay, these are the widgets, like buttons, text, labels, anything you want, that look exactly as the platform-specific UI. They are not the native components. They are widgets that look like them, okay? So, quick demo. Where do you have your bar?
You have to put the mouse on the bottom and just look at it around.
And where is the Android Studio you open? Here. So let's start a new project here. You don't have the SDK.
Maybe it's in a different path.
It's there, but just use code, Lewis.
Okay.
I thought code's even open. You can close by open files.
Where did you find her here?
It's by Visual Studio for Mac.
No, here. No, but to open the apps. Can go here. Right there. Oh, look at this. Perfect.
You can close my stuff.
I hate that you cannot snap to the top. Like in Windows. It's okay. I got it.
There's a keyboard for that.
Oh God. Can I zoom this?
Lewis does not use Mac.
No.
And I think
At all.
that probably is obvious to everyone.
Okay, let me just close this folder. Create a new terminal here. Okay, what am I? No. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I will let Fleur do that for me. You see, you don't have Flutter.
I do.
I told you run Flutter every day.
It's probably not my path.
Try it.
That's the problem. That's
That is
the
the
issue.
problem.
Do you want to try to plug in your
Just plug in
Yes.
yours now.
Yes,
It'll be
yes.
easier. We should have tested this ahead of time. All right. So no video for this
You
one.
know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change completely my demo.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a bottom bar navigation. Just to mess with you.
Okay. Because it was so hard for me.
Yes.
Just to show me the way. Here, man. port is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna change this. Can you make that full screen? Just drag it there. In the meantime, are you ready? You ready to go now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just waiting for the computer to boot.
Okay. Charles, now.
Okay. Back to where I left. So let's see, I'm in my desktop, Flutter, create. So this is how you create a project using your terminal. You just Flutter create and the name of your project. It will create everything for you, the folder structure for your Flutter project. It takes like 30 seconds. Done. It will try to run the Flutter get packages to, oh, I need internet here. That's true. So is this one, this is hard to forget. This is how I can do it. Shit. Okay, this is so Flutter demo project, and we can open it here. You see how it works? You see me? Look at this. Look at this. Boom. Boom. Why Mac doesn't have that?
I don't know. I asked myself the same question. Like all the
It's
time.
all different tools.
Yeah, I had to pay $5 to get that functionality. It doesn't even matter.
Okay, so first thing, let me get back to this. Okay, so how a Flutter project looks. So this is the structure. You first have your Android project. Your native Android project is there. Similar to what Forms does with its own project for each platform. Here you will have your app, and you see here you will have your own main activity stuff, which is basically just running the Flutter app. Okay? Then you have the iOS one. Okay, and then you have your lib folder, which is where your app lives. Okay, so basically any Flutter app is just a Dart package that runs in your device. Okay, so this is the current hello world they add to the app. So let's try to run it and see. really quick how it works.
Are you gonna run on iOS?
This Android. But I have a virtual machine here, okay? Don't get me started on that. Oh, come on. Okay, let me just go here. Finally, he wanted to create a thing. Okay. So this is the main app. Right now, it just has a material app. If you don't know Flutter, and because it's Google, they enforce you to use material design. So which is now the trending for mobile apps. It's like a standard. So but if you don't want to, you can use Cupertino for iOS and material design for Google, and that's it. Or create your own custom widgets. Okay. So basically, this has a main page, and this page will have a button that you click, increment, and that's it. That's how it works. Okay. So I don't like this. I knew it. Let me actually go to the old, this one that I was working before. Because the thing is that you need internet to download the packages from Flutter when you open for the first time. So that's why it was taking so long. So let's run this one. So here I have the minimum requirements for a Flutter app to run, which is just run app, and inside you will have a widget. This widget is just material app. It has, actually I can do this. I just need to put a widget in here. Analyzing. Okay, so let's see what happens when I do this. Spoiler alert, won't work. Because it depends on the text, the rendering engine. It needs to know if you're writing text from left to right or right to left. So you have to explicitly say if it's left to right or right to left. By default, material app with a scaffold, I will explain what is a scaffold, is left to right, because it's the standard. So if you don't put anything, it won't know, so it will give me an error. So it's building the APK, it's installing it on the emulator, it's running it, and boom. Didn't work. See? Wait. It will output the error. There you go. You have errors there. Nice. So let's say I want to explicitly say the direction of this.
Mm-hmm. With the material design, it understands, right?
Yes.
The default is left to right.
Left to right. I save. I hot restart, because hot reload only works with stateful widgets. Mm-hmm. So you see there in the corner, hello world? Doesn't look like it, but it's there. So let me center that. This is cool, you can just center widget. Look how fast the hot restart works. 2.7 seconds. And it's slow because my computer is doing some background stuff there. That's it, super easy. This is the minimum. So let's build the bottom bar navigation that Milan spent a lot. So I want to run an app. Okay, so let's first define my app. So I will create a stateless widget. Nice, shortcuts to create a bunch of code for you with just three keys. So this is my app, okay? And the child, let's see what's going to be the child. The child is going to be a stateful widget. Boom, bunch of code. My home page, maybe. What's going to be my app? My app is going to be a material app, okay? With home, my app, my homepage, sorry. Okay, also let's give it a title, just in case. Let's say it won't work because it needs to be hot restarted. Oh, I need a child here. So let's do the text thing for now.
So now because you're using a material app.
Oh, I didn't run the app, that's the thing.
So because my app is using
Yeah,
material app inputs, you
Huh?
don't have to specify text direction.
Yes, I already imported the package material.
Right.
So it has everything you need for that. So now let's do it. Perfect. Looks really ugly, right? Because it's just a text and it doesn't know where to put it. It's just trying to put it somewhere in the screen. So and it highlights with that yellow to show you like, hey, you're doing something wrong here. So let's put this in a center. And I just save the file. I don't need to do hot restart, and there you go, hot reload. Yeah, it's still ugly, right? So this page needs something. And what it needs is actually, let me wrap this into a widget that I'm going to call a scaffold. Okay, the scaffold is, like the word says, it's just the structure where you're going to build your page, right? So the scaffold has what? It has a app bar, okay? And I'm going to put an app bar where the thing is, title is going to be loaded up, okay? And this is going to be the body of my page. Sorry. Okay. Oh, sorry, the title needs what? It needs a widget. It doesn't need a string. So let me actually wrap this into.
I already see where you're going with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me do text. Oh, hello world again. So no, sorry. This was going to be Flutter demo. Let's save the file. What happens? You see that? How fast it updated the title?
Mm-hmm.
Now it looks better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nice. So this body, let's change it for the button navigation bar. Button navigation bar. So let's see what it needs. It needs items. It needs current index. Okay, let's declare that in all state here. Actually, let me do something here because I have the code here. Let me just see the code really quick here. Okay. So, this was my error. Let's actually leave this child here for now. Let's just see what else the scaffold has. It has see here. I know it has, for example, yes, it has floating. No, it's in the scaffold. Yes, I need to put it here. Okay. So it has. Gosh. Okay, that's floating action buttons. It has why it goes to the bottom instead of the top. Okay, these are all the properties of the scaffold. It has a border navigation bar, a button sheet, a drawer, end drawer, floating action button, floating action button animator, because you can add an animator for that. You can place the location like top, left, right, bottom, whatever you want for your floating action button. You have many things here that are usually like they need a lot of work on any other framework. Here is just out of the box. Okay, so this uses the button navigation bar. For this, I need a button navigation bar, and it needs items. Okay, and the items are going to be. I think this is an array of widgets. Yes. So this is going to be. Actually, you just need to do this. And let's start with text. Okay. So this is going to be item 1. Let's see. Oh, of course, it needs to be wrapped inside a button navigation bar item. I think this is called item. No, it has already everything you need, which is the title. So, oops. I shouldn't need anything else for this. Icon. Icon is required. Okay. Let's for now just.
Is it a widget?
Everything is a widget. So probably just do icon with icons dot. So which one do you want here? Home? Home. Yeah.
Sure beats by writing a render.
Yeah, definitely.
What else it needs?
Needs to be a widget.
It needs a widget. I
Everything's a
know.
widget.
Everything needs a widget. Perfect. Oh, something happened.
This you can see the crash right away, right?
Yeah, it says it needs at least 2 items. So let's copy paste this one. What is the second one?
Social.
Social.
Why not?
The default icon is the default icon.
Let's use this one.
Sure.
Perfect. See? You want to add another one?
That's cool.
What is the third one?
About. This is why people are excited about Flutter. So I fully understand.
For the info.
Info, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's even the right icon. Yeah.
I have two comments.
Oh, yes. See? Nice. Perfect.
So it took me,
5 minutes per minute.
yeah, it took me, it would take 5 hours.
And the best thing, I have never closed this.
Yeah.
It's constantly open. I just need
reloaded
to
it.
hold reload to restart if I need. It's there. You see?
Very nice.
So I'm not going any further with this. This is, I think, is enough for the talk. So let's continue with the presentation. Because
After you've proved your point.
exactly. Not yet. They did the official alpha release last year in November, and the official beta release this year in July, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And since the beta, they've done 2 updates, bringing new stuff. So
Yeah, it makes sense not to rush,
the
right?
yeah. So the 5 reasons I came here to show you. So the first one is obviously hot reload. You saw it in action. It instantly rebuilds your project. It keeps the app state. Yes?
I was going to ask if you know the date when Xamarin's going to have hot reload.
Like never.
Material.
There is a reason why it's really
There's a
hard.
spec for that, right?
There is a reason why it's really hard, and it's that in the middle you have the native UI components that they need to rebuild. And in the middle is sitting the mono and everything, and it's basically super hard. They did some live stuff like they're
With Android.
with Android and
Trying to port Dart.
what is the plugin that the monkey Gorilla
Yeah.
Gorilla live review, all of that.
But that
It's-
only works for the XAML, not the C#.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only works. So here I can change states of my app.
Yeah.
I can change logic. I can pull things for internet. I can without closing the app, I can write an entire API call, see it in action without rebuilding anything. Like literally without rebuilding the APK. How this works, yeah, I will explain later, but this is the first reason, hot reload. So like I said, instantly rebuild the project. You see, when I save the file, it's less than a second, and if I need to actually restart the app, it's maximum 2-3 seconds, which is way faster than anything else. Which, as you see, massively reduces development time. Like, and not just because you have a lot of widgets to play with, like everything is already there, right? But because of that hot reload, you can build super fast. It reloads in less than a second, and if you find that it's not working or something is weird, just hot restart. In my shortcut for this VS Code is Control F5. It will hot restart your. If you are running in your terminal, because you can run it on your terminal, you just press Shift R for hot restart. Second one is widgets. There is a full set of material widgets, material design widgets, that it's updated to Material 2.0. It also supports iOS Cupertino design if you want. Like if you really want an app that want it to look natively in both platforms, you can use Material for Android and Cupertino for iOS. You won't have any issue. Of course, you will need to create your like a intermediate widget, like a button, and then you do the implementation for Android Material and your implementation for iOS Cupertino. That's it. Actually, they created like a small widget that you wrap your button, and it detects automatically if it's iOS, will render it with Cupertino or Material Design. That's one of the things you have there. So it's very easy to build custom and complex widgets. Anything, shadows, animated, whatever you want. Literally whatever you want, you can build it on, because it's just a graphic engine basically in the end. So you can, if you can write and render vectors and polygons, you have everything there, right? It looks the same regardless of the platform. So like I can actually make an Android app look like an iOS app. Because if I use the Cupertino icons and Cupertino widgets on Android, it will look exactly like an iOS app. So whatever you do is predictable in how it's going to look. Okay? You won't have that issue of the text wrapping and cutting. Creating layouts is simple, fast, and efficient. You have a scaffold, use it. As a body, you can put anything inside. It's a structure. You need a button drawer, you need a button navigation bar, you need a floating action icon, button, whatever, it's there, okay? One thing they have is they prefer composing over extending. We are used to, in some phones, for example, you need a custom renderer or whatever, you need to extend from view or from visual element on WPF or or view, like in Xamarin, and then create your own custom render from there. In Flutter, you don't have that. You don't have view. You have widgets. You, instead of extending from widget and creating something, you just create from composing other smaller elements, box, shadow, circle, clipper, whatever you want. You can compose until you get whatever you want. You don't need to create anything from scratch. You just compose from smaller elements and smaller widgets until you get what you want.
It's good that it decouples the
Yeah, it decouples exactly. It decouples everything. The third reason, Dart. I love Dart. I've been playing with it for the last 4 or 5 months. It's amazing. It's object-oriented, optionally typed. Usually we're used to every object-oriented language needs to be strongly typed. That means if you have a declaration for a variable and you need like something new, right? You need to put a new word there, or you const word there. It's optional. You can put it, you cannot. It's the same. It's smart enough to know if you need a new instance, or if you're calling the static instance of it. It's smart enough to know that. So why write a new everywhere when it's just nothing, right? It should be smart enough. Languages should be smart enough for that. So this one is smart enough for that. It supports many programming paradigms. How do you pronounce this?
Paradigms.
Paradigms. Okay. So in Xamarin, we're used to Mvvm, and that's the only one basically, right? You could try to do some reactive there because there are reactive libraries for that, Redux, but in Dart you don't have that constraint. You can do whatever you want, literally. You can use Mvvm for writing Flutter apps. Scope model, that's a new one that is going around. Block pattern, which is very similar to what you just showed with your commands. It's separated from your view models. That's exactly what a block pattern is. It's a business logic component that goes somewhere that is decoupled from your views, from view models, because you can't use it on another page, right? That is a business logic component. That's the pattern that Google promotes to build Flutter apps. So if you feel comfortable with this, you will feel comfortable with the block pattern. It's asynchronous by nature. So it has not just the equivalent to task in C#, async await, exactly the same, but also it has something called streams, which is very similar to observables to reactive, okay? Actually, the DX Dart library, or RX Dart library, which is the reactive X library for Dart, is built on top of streams. They didn't need anything else. They just built it on top of streams. While in C# they had to build everything with tasks and a bunch of workarounds to make the asynchronous streams observables work in C#. Here it's just by nature is how it works. It's ahead of time when you build your app for release or debug if you want, and it's just in time as you saw it when you are developing. And both of them are exactly the same as in predictability. Like sometimes you build an app, you're building your app. Usually when you build on Xamarin Forms, you never enable the AOT until you are going to release, because it takes like 20 minutes to build, right? You just always build with just in time. And then you build, everything worked, and then you go and build ahead of time, something is broken. What? Why? I don't know. In Dart, it's 100% predictable in both.
Because you're not relying on the
Because it doesn't.
APIs.
Exactly. It doesn't rely on anything. It's its own framework, and the framework is built in C++, which is actually compiled natively on the device. And the best thing for me is you don't need any markup language.
That's debatable.
Examples.
I know people love XAML, CSS, everything. If you love that, build websites, right? Right?
That's why we're all moving to Webassembly.
Exactly. But you know what? This will be also for Webassembly.
Yeah.
There's people working on porting the engine for browsers.
Yeah, it should be the next target, right?
Yeah.
Besides Android and iOS.
And I heard, I caught wind of somebody working on a project to build something into Dart and Flutter so it processes HTML. So you can have markup and templates.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
Because you can use any
Exactly.
paragraph, right? So
Yeah,
people
like I said at the
understand
beginning,
what-
open source, free, you can go there, you can create your own markup extensions for Dart, that's it. It will work.
How is it similar to Angular development from your experience?
I haven't tried
Seems it's
too much,
light.
but in Angular usually people use Redux or Reactive libraries to build. So when you have your logic, you usually bind your logic to your UI components without any like force state to like re-render stuff, right? Like automatically when the observable notifies the view immediately rebuilds, right? It's very similar to that in that aspect. Okay, it's just that the UIs use the same language that the logic. Like you write your UIs in Dart, you write your logic in Dart, everything in Dart, your tests, everything, whatever you want. Fourth is actually testing. Okay, they have three types of tests here. You have your unit test, like any people build unit tests with any language for your apps. You can build your unit tests. You have your widget test. Let's skip that for now. You have integration or UI test, similar to the UI test for Xamarin. They also run in the UI Xamarin cloud platform for UI test. Really nice.
Have you used any of the UI testing tools?
Yes.
So how does it work? This is something that I've actually been thinking about a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when you load up a native view and you run REPL against it, you get a UI tree.
Yeah.
When you do that with Dart, what do you get back?
Also a UI tree.
You get a UI tree. So
Yeah.
how does it know how to do that?
Because the engine
Yeah.
builds the what they call the widget tree, which
Okay.
has all the widgets inside, and you
Right.
you can find them by keys, right? Like in automation like
Automation
this,
ID.
you can
So
find you have a key and
it
that's
knows how to interface with REPL, so it provides an interface to REPL. Okay.
not a problem.
No.
It doesn't use REPL. It uses test driver, which is
Okay.
another one. It's proprietary.
Similar thing.
Yeah, it's a similar thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And widget test. What is widget test? Is something in the middle between these two. Okay? When you test unit test, you're just testing the logic of your business logic, basically, right? When you do integration, you just test your UI. But when you test widgets, you're basically running the app in a virtual screen that virtually render your widgets and test them like a UI test. It's just that it skips frames, right? Usually if you have an animation, you will skip it because it doesn't have anything to render. It just goes to the next state after the other, and it's super fast. So you can write like pre-UI test with widget test. If they pass, probably the UI test will pass too, right? Unless there is an animation in the middle that breaks something, because the other one skipped the animations, right? But it's a good way to test also the UI without using any device or rendering anything. It's a virtual rendering that, and you can run this is funny because you can run your widget test on the device, and you can actually see rendering the thing on the device just renders weird because it doesn't render perfectly, it just renders square, and you can see everything moving super fast. Like whatever you did there, it passes to the next state fast, and then it ends. And the last reason is packages. There are tons and tons of packages, plugins available in the pod for that one. That's similar to NuGet packages for Microsoft. This is basically saying there are, up today, I checked, and there are over 1,000 packages of plugins there, because that has been used for the last 5 or 6 years for web development. And people create a lot of packages, right? Like, I don't know, like, for example, the RX Dart library, the Meetup library, all of them are there, okay? Also, you can find specific for Flutter, like image picker, camera, text-to-speech, anything you want, you can find it there. It's still, like I said, on the development, it's still growing. Sometimes some plugins are broken because of an update, but let's wait. It's growing, it's going on, and it's gaining a lot of velocity in the community. Okay, very, very fast growing community. Like I said, all the Dart libraries, the old Dart libraries, I didn't want to clip an image. Okay, get something like I give it a coordinated image. I need a box inside that just to clip that image. It's not in Flutter because you don't use image manipulation, but it was a Dart library around there, completely compatible with that, because it's like if you grab a net standard C# library and put it in your Forms project or even Xamarin Native, it will work. Exactly the same here. And the last one is Firebase. They have native integration with Firebase, and anything you need for your server, you can use Firebase for it. It's equivalent to Azure, but from Google. I've tested it. It's super easy to go with it. Definitely much easier than Azure, 1,000 times. So it's really cool, and it's cheaper also, like way cheaper. Like when you pay something $100 a month, which is cheap for Azure, it's free. The same amount of things like data transfer, calls to your APIs, everything is free on Firebase until you need to pay. Of course, when you need to pay, it's because you need to pay like 1,000, but at least you can test a lot of things with that. So how do I start with Flutter? Just go there, flutter.io. Go there, read, start playing with it.
How to, like, there's a bunch of getting started.
Yeah, they have everything. They even added, like, a couple of weeks ago, a full post, like a full page in the website that says Flutter for Xamarin Forms developer. So you will find a one-to-one with comparison with Flutter and Forms.
That's the Australian guy.
It's really cool.
I can't remember.
So,
Oh, really? He wrote that? Oh, nice, yeah.
so I have here a couple of extra reasons. The first one is that Flutter integrates with popular development tools with like VS Code, IntelliJ, Xcode, Android Studio, whatever you used to use. Just if you love it, just go with your editor. That's it. That's the one you like. In my case, I love Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, so I use Visual Studio Code. If you're used to Android Studio or Xcode, you can use it there. There are plugins for those. You can easily integrate it with tools for continuous integration and deployment, like Travis, Bamboo from Bitbucket, CircleCI, anything that.
Azure DevOps.
Yeah, of course. Because it will run in a Docker, and if you can script in your Docker, just Flutter run, Flutter test, Flutter build. That's it. That's all you need to do in your build. You know that for Xamarin Forms and other apps, you need a bunch of other stuff to have in your YML build script. It's much more complicated here. App Center can build this for you. They have even a small script.
Built in, right? Yeah.
It's not yet built in, but they have it in the GitHub, and they will put it built in.
Yeah, so they announced, App Center made some kind of soft announcement that they're going to support Flutter like very soon.
Yeah. Really cool. One thing is that everything you see about widgets, animations, anything that you can see in your app, just basically the widgets, they are all inside the framework. Like, you don't use any native stuff, right? There is a drawback from that. One is that if you actually need a native view, like Google Maps, it provides you, the SDK provides you a native view. You cannot use it, like the native one. You will have to do your own. Thankfully, Google created their own, Mapbox created their own, but things like right now, an HTML, something that as simple as an HTML view, something that renders HTML, is not there. They are working on that, and they don't think they will have it for the first release. And it's something that many people is asking, because if you're creating a blog app or a feed, RSS feed, you need some HTML to render. They don't have it. Because it's,
No web
you
view,
cannot
right?
get the web view from, you can have a full screen web view. Yeah, you can do that because you can open a new activity in Android or a UI view for iOS and boom, you have your full screen web view. Fine. But that's as far as it can go for now. They are working on an actual HTML renderer in widgets, like it renders in the framework, so it doesn't depend on anything else. Yeah, so this is the end.
Gee, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you guys liked it.
Yeah, of course.
So we're done with Xamarin?
So keep having this debate with everyone, really, because we're talking about like, like Flutter has clear advantages over Xamarin in some areas, but Xamarin still has clear advantages in others. Right?
Yeah.
It's more mature. It's has a lot more tooling to it. There's a lot of apps out there with Xamarin already, so like you can't take a Xamarin app and just snap your fingers and have it be Flutter, right? You'd have to rebuild it from the ground up. So and plus, they're continuing to evolve the platform, so that can't be discounted either. With things like Shell, they're trying to keep pace. Who's heard of Xamarin Forms Shell? So I can't really talk with authority on it because I just started exploring it, but I've been kind of discussing a little bit. It's basically the same idea as Flutter. So it wraps your whole app in what you call a shell, and then it renders as a Skia canvas. So it does it the same way that Flutter renders it. So that'll light up immediately like hot reloading for your views and things like that. So that's exciting. Of course, it's got a way to go because just like Flutter, it's not mature, right? It's still new and developing. So, but Microsoft is not. They understand that Flutter has some clear advantages, and they want to try and keep pace with that, and not fall completely.
I guess that overall it's
irrelevance.
very good to have some more tools options in the market, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Google comes up with this awesome tool that solves a lot of the issues we have daily with Xamarin, and then Microsoft is going to ramp up to try to keep up, and the winners at the end of the day are the developers, right?
Yeah.
we get better tooling for building your software.
All right, so next thing we want to talk about, I'm not even going to bother launching PowerPoint, but Daniel and I are going to talk about some of the work we did around the build and release pipeline. And this kind of has some wide implications, and I think this is very interesting. So when you're building mobile apps, because they're not a web app, it's really hard to make sure that it's hard to manage configuration. That's like one of the things that I kept like running up against as I've been working with Xamarin through the years. Like configuration is a pain. So how do you manage configuration? You can use pre-compiler directives. So you can do pound debug or pound. You can even do solution, like a whole bunch of different solution configurations for each environment. There's all kinds of different ways I've dealt with it. None of them have been really great. So with a recent project we've been involved with, they had like 7 environments they were managing.
Yeah.
And so every time you had to do a release, you had to make sure that, it was very cumbersome, right? So you'd build a different package for each environment. So that kind of conflicts with what your aim is with like a proper build pipeline. With a proper build pipeline, you want to have the same code that you're executing in development execute in production. So you want it to go all through the stages. You want to go through development, and then maybe you have an integration test, then maybe you have a UAT, and then you go to production. It's all signed off. And you want the same code running in each environment. So the problem we were having was that wasn't happening at all. You couldn't promote between environments because you had a different build for each environment. So you were getting different results in each environment because there was different pre-compiler directives being defined. It was a very error-prone process, and you weren't carrying the same package all the way through. So we started thinking about, okay, well, how can we fix this? Oh, well, we'll use XML configuration. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Okay, so we looked around, and there's a couple libraries. I think I've mentioned Chase Florell's name in here before. We're working with him. He's got a configuration library. Also, anybody who's at the meetup with Ben Ishmael Levy, he was the dancing guy at the Microsoft office. He's got a library out there for Xamarin Forms configuration too. So cross-platform XML-based configuration. So we looked at and evaluated both. They both do about the same thing. What they do is you put your config file in your shared code library, your shared class library, and you copy it across to each head and bundle as assets. So it comes along with your application, which is all great. But then, okay, great, I've got XML configuration, but I'm still in the same spot where I've bundled application XML in my application package. And how do I get that out? How do I change it for each environment without, actually rebuilding different versions of the package for each environment? So the big thing we found was, okay, well, we have to unwind the package. We have to unpack it and manipulate the contents and then repack it. So we build it once. So we build it as part of our build pipeline. So our build takes care of packaging, so it creates a package for us. And then that package sits there. And if we want to deploy it to each environment, it goes into the release pipeline, and we go, okay, now deploy it to development. It takes it, it unpackages it, applies configuration, repackages it, and sends it out the door. So that gives us the ability to manipulate a lot of different things. Because we're unpackaging and like decompressing or decompiling the packages, you can do things like with iOS, you can reach in and you can change the package display name.
Change assets.
You can change assets, you can change the bundle ID. So what you can do, the nice thing is it really gives you a nice fine-grained control with the same code. So you've got the same assemblies running with slightly different configuration. So we would go in, we would change our XML-based configuration. We'd change our info plist. So we go into our info plist in iOS. We change the bundle ID so you can run, and we add a postfix for the environment. So you have a bundle ID of like com.bsilabs.myapp.dev.uat. Test, whatever, and then kill it for production. So it's just .com or com.bsilabs.myapp. But what that does, it allows you to have multiple instances of the app on a device. So I can have the device with 4 different versions of my app, really the same versions, but with different configuration applied, pointing to different environments. The other thing you do is change the display name. So we even got it so it would say UAT, test, development, and then the actual app name for production. So I want to show you the scripts that we put together. Yeah, so we put together Lewis wanted me to put bash in my or Flutter in my bash profile. Now I did. That's right. That's good timing for you, right, Lewis? We created this little project called Mobile Deploy. It has 2 shell scripts in it, 2 bash scripts. This one has 13 parameters, but don't be intimidated by that. You can kind of pick and choose. And let's see. bit too big. So what this essentially does is it takes in a whole bunch of metadata about your app. It takes in the path to your IPA. It takes your environment name, which is, we're using environment name because we're not actually reaching in and manipulating the XML file at this point. We're actually bundling a whole bunch of different XML files into our app so we can change which XML file we're using locally. So we can run against different environments locally. So we bundle them all at build time. Then when we go to deployment, we cull all the files that we don't want. So we delete them all and only keep the file that we want, and we name it appconfig, and away we go. So this has a bit of an opinion to it. I'm probably gonna reduce that a little bit. This is on my GitHub, so if you want to take it and play with it, I don't have a license on it, just do whatever you want, basically. So we've got, it takes package path, environment name. So when you're doing a repackage of iOS, you need your certificate and your certificate password, and you need a provisioning profile, just like you would if you were originally building the package. Because when you unpackage it, so IPAs and APKs are just zip files. That's all they are. So you can unzip them and see what's inside them and play with the contents. But if you want to pack them back up, you have to make sure that you have a proper provisioning profile bundled with it, and that it's signed correctly. So you still need those certs piece. So what we do is when we take the artifact from build, we ship it with this script. So this script comes along for the ride, along with the provisioning profile and the certificate files. So those things are required at the deployment phase to actually do what we need, all the manipulation we need to repackage it and push it out the door for deployment. So we've got all these things. As you can see, it takes in a couple of different things. It takes in your app name and your team ID, so it can talk to, or so it knows which provisioning profile to pull out, and how to use your certificate and everything like that. Takes a display name, so you can change your display name like I was talking about. You can change it to fit your environment name or whatever you want. You can change your bundle ID, so you can have multiple instances on a device. And you can manipulate your version at deployment time if you choose. We don't actually use that. I put that in there because we had another use case, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that needed to manipulate the version code after the build happened. That was with Unity. We've done some Unity development, and that was a little interesting, and we had to accommodate it into this script, because I went, oh, this is a useful thing, I need it right now, other people are gonna need it. So if you need to update the version number after you've already built the package, you can do that, which is really, really useful, because you know with Google Play and with App Store Connect, the versions have to increment. If you upload a new build, it has to increment. So I'll just do a really quick walkthrough. There's some cleanup code in here, some init code. It works out of a Scratch directory that it creates. So basically just, these are meant to run on Mac build agent. The reason why I said this is only going to be Mac only is because you can't build an iOS package or even repackage it from a Windows box. So this is all meant to be run, both the Android and the iOS scripts are meant to be run on a Mac build agent. So it sets up a temporary keychain for you. So it takes in the certificate and basically loads your certificate into that keychain, and along with your provisioning profile. Whoops. It extracts the package, applies the configuration. So this is where I'm talking about. It's basically removing all files that don't match the environment name that you've passed in. Sets the version if you've supplied a version. Updates the display name if you're changing the display name and the bundle ID. It does some preparation work for iOS. You have to do some manipulation of the entitlements file. So if you're actually if you're moving between an ad hoc release, so if you've got an ad hoc deployment that's going out through like something like App Center, or if you're doing like a side load, the way you package your app actually changes from something that's actually going out into App Store Connect. So there's a few things in there. You actually have to, it's this flag here. There's a beta reports active flag that you have to like remove from the entitlements file, which is really interesting. That caused a lot of headaches because it's very largely, it's pretty much undocumented. So I've done some work here, so you don't have to. So if you ever get into the situation where you need to repackage your IPA, you go, oh, Dylan wrote that script. I should go get it from his GitHub. So now you know where to get some of this fun stuff. You have to remove all the signing details from it, so we did that. And then you re-sign it, you verify it, and package it, and away you go. So it's really funny the way we saw this. It was going to be, oh, Android is so much easier and iOS is so much harder until we get to a certain point. So Android is kind of interesting because the way it packages, it's not a straight up and down zip file. So with zips, there's two ways of adding files to your archive. You can store and you can deflate. So if you store, that means you've added a file to the archive with no compression. It's not compressed at all, it's just in there. If you deflate it, that has compression associated with it, and it can have a number anywhere from 1 to 9. And so when you build an Android package, it actually takes each file and determines, okay, am I storing this or decompressing it? Compares it to a known list of files or known list of extensions and decides what it's going to do with it. So it varies. So we were just using zero compression. We just stored everything. And our app package was very large. I think it was like 150 megabytes. So if you've worked with Google Play long enough, you know that when you upload an APK to Google Play, the hard limit is 100 megs. You can't upload anything larger than 100 megabytes. So of course we couldn't put this into Google Play. So we had to figure out how to either change the way the zip compression was adding things to to our archive, or find another angle. So me, being a very, wanting to not reinvent the wheel, basically, we found this tool, which is an open source tool that's already out there called Apktool, and it's built just for this purpose. So Apktool basically, it does a lot of the same functionality. If you can see in my IPA here, I'm using like PL util and code sign. So macOS comes with all these tools that help you package and sign your app. There's nothing really like that for Android. It's a little bit different. You have to basically know the internal workings of Gradle or go through Gradle, or have somebody like Microsoft working on a tool like Xamarin or Flutter or something along those lines. Apktool has, the developers of that tool have reverse engineered that whole process, so they know how to unpackage your file, basically decompile your file, and then recompile it using the proper zip compression. So that allows you to basically extract your file, do what you need to do, and then repackage it. So we're using Apktool as our main mechanism for unpacking and repacking. And even if you're kind of interested in this, Apktool is worth looking at. It's a really interesting utility. And then of course we've got things like we have to re-sign the Android app and zip align it. This is also kind of interesting because this is no longer the standard way of packaging apps in Android, but there's a certain little, I can't remember what the detail was. It's, I think if you're targeting the APK above a certain version, you're supposed to jar align or APK align, and then you sign it. But below a certain version, I think it's APK version 26 or SDK version 26. If you're targeting below 26, you do the other way around, and it won't accept. It's just kind of odd how it works. So I wish I would have wrote some notes on that when I ran into it a couple months ago, but there's some oddities around signing and aligning with Android because they've changed it recently. This one isn't as fancy, doesn't do as much right now. It doesn't set the version, doesn't do anything like that. But there's certainly the opportunity to do that because once you've got it unpacked, you can basically do whatever you need to do. So I'll be continuing to evolve this as I continue to use this. Same with the IPA. So I'm using these both in live projects, so they're going to continue to be maintained by me because I need to maintain them for the projects I'm working on. So you can look for them to be continuously updated and honed to work even better. So that one was really interesting, and I figured it would be really valuable to share with everybody because of that. This issue is, I keep coming up against it, and this is finally a solution that I'm happy with. And feel free to grab this code. Any questions or comments? Is this like a useful thing? I don't know if anybody else is running into these kind of issues. Do people run apps against more than one environment? Yeah, Oscar, yeah, Lewis. Yeah, like this has constantly been a pattern that I'm finding. So the other thing, what do we have for our next topic here? Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel put some nice time into building some slides for this, so I'm gonna go through them, even though I'm gonna break everything. So he's got the problem clearly defined. We have to go, each environment has a different build, just like I said, and the configuration was compiling code, and it was a huge pain. So we solved it by unpacking, modifying config with shell scripts, and repackaging. Build once, distribute everywhere. That's a great way of putting it. So that's really what we want to do. We want to build one time, have one set of assemblies that we know is getting deployed to every environment, and we know that are running against every environment, no matter what you have the app packaged or configured to do. Just like a web app. It's your turn, my friend.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You needed this, which is what you say for Unity, because of what?
So with Unity, we use Cloud Build, and Cloud Build doesn't automatically do any version incrementing.
The version thing?
Yeah, it doesn't.
What is it for the hard limit on 100 for 100 megs?
Yeah, there's a hard limit.
Yeah.
Your APK can only be 100 megs.
Well, yeah, your APK can be, but
Yeah, you can have expansions.
Another expansion.
Yeah.
And in Unity, you have an option that divides your build into APK and OBB.
To build, sorry?
In Unity, you have an option to build your APK,
Yeah.
APK and OBB
Right,
automatically.
right.
But I don't know if it's available for.
The problem was like, yeah, it wasn't even, with proper compression, it was nowhere near that size, right? So it was an issue with us doing just doing a store. So, and that was not Unity, that was a Xamarin project. So that's,
With this, you can generate, if it's over 100, you can generate APK and OBB?
no, this doesn't apply to that. So the Unity apps that we built were small, and when we repackaged them, they were small, and particularly using APK tool, because I had already refined the tools before we started using them in Unity. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
phones or any other, you won't ever do it over
Yeah.
100.
you shouldn't,
Yeah, if
shouldn't.
you have an app over 100, you just doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You're doing something wrong.
Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna grab a water bottle from
Oh, sure.
the closet there.
All right, you ready?
Hey guys. So has anybody played with chatbots recently? The bot framework, Microsoft bot framework. So I've been playing around for the past months. Something really interesting. It's a completely different paradigm of software. Paradigm of software, where it's a different input of data. It's something different from what we usually see around. So I've been playing with Microsoft framework, official framework for building bots. It's called Microsoft Bot Framework. It's like I said, it's a different way of approaching customers and approaching your users. Instead of having a tutorial or some guide for them to go through, you can just try to if properly built, you can have a really good human chat with a bot. If it's if you have all of the AI and other tools that are available for you in the market, if you can plug them together, you can have something really interesting. And just a new way, again, of approaching your users. And well, since it's a new way of dealing with customers, dealing with users, there has been a lot of discussion if bots will take over all of the human interaction, since all of the AI services have been becoming very advanced. So there's people talking about this bot of things, like Internet of Things. So there's this new word that they came up with to call that, to name everything that is turning into a bot or is turning into a human to machine interaction. It will not solve all your problems because it's not self-aware. So basically in the back you have a service that is learning through patterns and interactions with the users. And so basically with a real big, with a large number of interactions, it will learn patterns, and it will improve itself, but not to a point where it thinks by itself or it's self-aware. So for a chatbot, specifically to make sense, it has to have an objective defined. Like you can't just have a bot over there talking to a user, and I don't know, just a bot that you can talk anything to it and expect any type of answer, like, I don't know, like Google. Like you'll type your search and it will give you a whole bunch of results, you know. You have to have an objective defined for your bot. You have to know that when the user talks to it, it needs help to understand some functionality of something you built, or it wants to ask questions about certain subjects. So there's a few types of chatbots that are mostly common in the market right now. One is the frequently asked question bots, where basically you have those pages with a lot of links leading to question and answers. So basically you can compile that all together into a bot that can understand what the user is asking and give proper responses that the users are looking for. You have social bots, like those bots on Twitter that you can talk to sometimes and just have a conversation with. There's a famous bot that it's a genie one that it first asks you to think of something, and then by you answering questions about what you're thinking, it has a certain probability of finding what you're thinking. I don't recall the name of the bot right now, but it's yeah, I think it was something like that. So that's a type of social bot built for fun. And assistants like Google Assistant and other assistants. And it's a cool interface to have between your users and a simple AI. I mean, I've firstly started building chatbots just for fun, just because I've been seeing a lot of Microsoft people and people I follow on Twitter talking a lot about cognitive services. And on Build this year, they were talking about a lot about AI, and so I wanted to check this type of software out. So yeah, it's a cool thing to have in a project you're working on. So what's the tool set for that I've used to build a couple of bots that I've built? So it's really simple to get started. It's a Microsoft bot framework. It's, basically, it scaffolds a template of an API with the bot framework attached to it. So you can build like conversations and form structures in it. It's really like a straightforward and easy to get started. There's a Q&A maker. It's a tool specifically built for frequently asked questions bot. So if your company has a FAQ link, you can just copy that link and paste into this service, and we'll try to extract everything into a question and answer, like a dictionary pattern. And it has a kind of AI plugged into it. It's active learning. So throughout time, it will eventually also learn patterns of questions and answers that your users have been receiving. So it tries to identify what is the best answer for the questions they're asking. And you can also plug in other cognitive services from Microsoft. There's the text, the language recognition. It's called Louis.ai.
Yeah, language understanding intelligent service.
Yeah. So so Q&A maker is specifically a question and answer. So it tries to identify what's the best answers for that your users are asking. So Louis.ai, it identifies the sentiment of the user by the words it has been typing. So you can kind of deal with if the user is frustrated or if the user is happy. And it has a whole bunch of other applicabilities that I haven't really looked into yet. And also, so this the right channel for publishing your bot. So once you have your objective and once you have your bot built, which is not terribly difficult to get started with, you have to know what's the right channel to approach your users. It's very common that people post their bots on Skype or on Facebook, or even through email or SMS or other stuff. I've been working in a sample app that uses this API to just ship your chatbot with a Xamarin app or really any other app, because since it's an API and you're consuming the questions and answers, it should be very straightforward to ship with your apps. So yeah, that's it. I'm sorry I do not have a demo for you guys. I couldn't, like yesterday I stayed up late trying to get everything together, but it was just stronger than me. I was like, fuck it, man. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, guys.
I'm just going to talk really briefly on this. Has anybody used Azure API management? Is anybody using Azure? What's Azure use? So I've been using this really heavily, and I figured I didn't really know about this. It hadn't been like really thrown at me, so I figured it would be good to just kind of talk about this and what it does. Azure API management is essentially a proxy that sits in front of your app and allows you to manipulate requests coming in and going out of your app. So I'm working with a client right now that is super old school. They don't have a really good DevOps pipeline. So when they push API changes, it's like after hours, a whole thing where they have 16 people on the phone and it takes 3 hours and it's super error prone and it sucks. And constantly on them to put attention on it, but they're not doing it. So I went, okay, well, how can I get around this? Because this is crazy. So I stuck this in front of the API. So my app that I'm working on iterates far faster than the API deploys. So whenever I've got changes ready, I either have to cherry pick just the changes that aren't impacted by the old API or like the API changes that are sitting in our repo, or I have to figure out a way to adapt. So this is a way that I can transform inbound and outbound data to make it shape the way my app expects and shape the way the API expects without having to unwind changes that were coupled to model changes that impact both layers. It's really, really good for that. So the ability to manipulate inbound, outbound data. You can also have it versioned, like attached to versions. So if you're doing versioning of your API through headers or through headers or the URL, or maybe you're doing it through some other means, Azure API Management can detect that and reroute different requests to different places. So if you've got a new version of your app coming out and you want it to get through App Store approval, but you don't have your API deployed, you could target that specific version that's going through the approval process and maybe have it go to a staging slot, which has like a new API in it that isn't necessarily a production API. So the app that's going to production looks like it's working, but if you really had it point to true production, it would fail. So yeah, I hadn't really heard about this until relatively recently. I think I've been working with it for about 3 months, and it's just basically saved my ass about half a dozen times or more at this point. So I figured I'd just kind of tout it. I think it's pretty expensive on Azure. You have to have, I think it'll work with, I'm using it with a Swagger document so it understands what my API surface is. So if you've got Swagger, it works with that. If you're using like Swashbuckle, if you're using ASP.NET. If not, I think it'll also plug into an existing Azure API service. So it's worth a look. There's a lot of power there. It gives you the ability to scale too. Like I've used it for manipulating requests, but there's a lot of other things you can do. And it'll expose your APIs through a way that you can have third parties consume it. There's a whole portal that comes along with it. So it's pretty valuable. So I just figured I'd just give that a quick plug. I'm going to talk just for a minute about development tools, because I recently switched over to using Rider almost full time. So if you're doing Xamarin day-to-day development and you're using a Windows machine, who uses ReSharper? Anybody a big fan? Yeah, like I can't get through a day of development without it. Every time I try and disable it, because Microsoft is like, oh, disable ReSharper, right? They give you that warning. You talk to anybody on the Visual Studio team and you tell them like, why is this so slow? They go, disable ReSharper. And they're trying to get more tools, more of the refactoring tools into the IDE, but they can't keep pace with JetBrains. They can't. So I'm a big ReSharper guy, and when I got sick of Visual Studio for Windows for a couple different reasons. Number one, I don't like the way it interfaces with a Mac. I think that's a hugely complex solution. So that's why I'm using a Mac. I've been using Visual Studio for Mac for the last while, and just the fact that I would have to go back to Visual Studio for Windows to do any major refactoring or any serious coding, it drove me nuts. It was just like a whole thing that I had to deal with, and I didn't have a single driver, and every time I fire up Parallels, it drains my battery or makes my fan spin. So I tried Rider earlier this year. It didn't go so well. I ended up just removing it. But I've been running the last 3 builds. So I've been running it like basically since, would have been July, mid-July. So I've been on it for 2 months. It's become my daily driver as far as an IDE goes. It has all the ReSharper tools. It has a SQLite browser built in. It has a terminal built in right into the IDE. It has a really good unit test manager, just like ReSharper. all the refactoring tools. So it does come with a few warts. It is sometimes reluctant to launch your simulator or connect to your physical device if you have an Android plugged in. So it's not perfect yet, but you can get a 30-day free trial. So I like it, and I actually extended my ReSharper license this week to include Rider, and I figured I'd plug it because I'm getting a lot of productivity out of it and really enjoying it. It's lightweight, so it's nice. It's not gonna like bog your PC down or your Mac machine. You can use it in Windows too, so you can use the same exact same IDE in both environments.
How is it better than Visual Studio Code?
How's it better than Visual Studio Code? It'll build Xamarin projects. Build and run Xamarin projects. Way better refactoring tools. Like the refactoring tools, it's JetBrains, right? So it feels like ReSharper. So yeah, I wanted to talk on that. I have one last thing I want to show off. This is a little thing. So Bsi Labs recently built some games in Unity, like I was talking about. And I wanted to show everybody those very basic games that we have. So I'm going to start with this one. So I was talking about some of the interesting things that came up with Unity. Of course, Unity uses C# as its like scripting language and uses the Mono engine to execute. I'm going to exit this because it's going to drive me nuts. But we put together a few little games using Unity, and it was really interesting to go through the process. We ended up using, I don't know if you've got any experience with doing CI with Unity, but Unity has a product called Unity Cloud Build. It's very expensive. It's very cumbersome and slow, and we had to try and fit that with the rest of our tools. So we're using former VSTS, Azure DevOps, to get code from, the whole cycle. And we ended up writing some PowerShell scripts that connected to Unity Cloud Build to run the build, get the package when it was finished, and bring it back to VSTS. And then we did some manipulation there because we wanted to have that consistent, those consistent build numbers and everything kind of under one roof. So that was a very interesting thing that we did. Now looking at trying to build a standalone Unity agent. Have you ever done this, Lewis? Has anybody ever worked with Unity, like to any extent, aside from Lewis? No?
I know that you can build your project into Apktool project and Android Studio project.
Right.
And from that, you can actually compile both of them separately using native compiler for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know of a tool that can, like, without opening the project in Unity, just take a project
That's
and
basically,
build the both folders with your...
You can do it with command line, but you have to have all the Unity tools installed.
Exactly.
So I'm I'll probably have a build agent that does that. But that was a bit of a fun one, trying to get it all to play nice. And the end result's kind of fun. I'll start up another one. I gotta see if I can rotate this. This is our first.
You should rotate automatically.
Let's see. With Visor?
Yeah, with that. But you have to open something that
Yeah.
opens in that state. Yes. See?
Okay.
Nice.
I don't know which version this is, but we'll see. So this is one where these are all language games for a First Nations tribe that's working on trying to get the youth more engaged in their language. Shut up. So you can see there's a lynx running around, and it jumps and collects letters. And then you have to reorder it into a word. So anyways, that's It's a fun thing that we got to do, and the development, the DevOps lifecycle story for it was really interesting because Unity is such a different type of tool from everything else I've used, and we were kind of confined to their own product to do the build. So trying to make it all play nice together was a bit of an interesting one. So if anybody ever comes up against that, I can help you out with some shell scripts for that too. I've been all about the shell scripting lately. It's just been.
You know, I think, I don't remember, was it 3 years ago, the people from Pokemon Go, they did a whole presentation on how they manage the continuous CI/CD.
Niantic or Niantic?
Yes.
Yeah.
They did a presentation about exactly that, how they managed to do the CI and CD for
Interesting.
their Pokemon game.
Well, I'm gonna look that up right now.
But I don't remember where it is.
CI/CD.
Go on Google. In YouTube.
Yeah, so that's all. That's today. Again, if you want to present anything in the future, let me know. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for making this a great year.
Yeah.